Welcome to our camp. Pull up a log, get close to the fire, and watch the flames dance as you listen to a story and let your imagination run wild. If you hear anything beyond the tree line, don't worry. They won't come close, as long as the fire keeps burning. Listen closely now. It's time for a story from the road. Tonight's story is called One Last Drink, Part 8 of the Wicker Saga, written by Shadow Swimmer 77. Frank slouched happily on his bar stool, riding the best buzz of his life. Joe sat next to him, nervously scanning the room. Holy shit, Joey. Just holy shit. There was something in that last one. I don't know what it was, but whoo mama, I gotta get me another one of those. It was Saturday night and the bar was crowded with 20 and 30 somethings. A dull roar of conversation filling the air as they joked and flirted. Despite this, Frank was being loud enough to draw some annoyed glares from the patrons closest to where they were sitting. Joe gave the cute blonde next to him an apologetic smile, and she rolled her eyes before turning back to the Clint Eastwood look-alike currently chatting her up. Joe swallowed hard.
Would you shut the fuck up, Frank? First, you can't have another one of those because you got us kicked out of that bar. Honestly, man, I have no idea how you've survived this long the way you act. That chick's boyfriend is going to be pissed after what you pulled, and I'm not totally sure they didn't follow us here.
Frank's drunken ebullience turned sullen in an instant as he sulkily leaned across the bar, his scowl fixed on a bowl of peanuts resting between them. Whatever, Joey. Let him come. Flower Power back there wants to make an issue of it. He's more than welcome to try. I'll feed his head to his own asshole. Prick has a problem with me. He should learn how to keep a tighter watch of his woman. Joe sighed. He'd been out with Frank enough to know there was no reasoning with him when he got like this.
Yeah, I'm sure you would, Frank. Anyway, we should think about getting back to the house. You know how pissed Boris gets when we miss curfew. It's getting late, and if we don't get back soon, we're gonna be toast.
Ah, Joey, you little bitch. Fuck Boris. You know that asshat just likes to think he's got control of us. What's he care if we come home at 2 or 3? No difference. I'm getting another drink before we go. Joe reached over and pulled on Frank's shoulder.
Damn it, Frank, you don't need another drink. You're drunk enough as is. Any more in you, and you're likely to start something that will have us against the whole damn bar. And I don't care how tough you think you are. If that happens, we are going to most likely get the shit kicked out of us. Then we'll be lucky if we can crawl back to Boris's place, and even luckier if he lets us inside.
A cold metallic sheen slid over Frank's eyes, and his mouth drew into a hard line as he reached up and took a hold of Joe's wrist in a crushing grip. Get your fucking hands off me, Joey. Joe let go of Frank's coat and gulped.
Yeah, sure, Frank. Whatever you say, man.
A single bead of sweat rolled down Joe's forehead as Frank increased the pressure of his hold, tight enough to leave bruises. Abruptly, Frank smiled and released Joe's wrist. See there? That wasn't so hard, was it? Now don't get your panties all in a bunch. One more drink and we'll head back to the house so old Mother Boris won't be concerned, okay? Joe slumped unhappily in his stool, rubbing his sore wrist.
Okay, yeah, okay. One last drink. Just try to control yourself, would you? For me?
Only for you, Joey. Now then, let's see. What do I want? Better make it something special since you're rushing me over here and... What is that smell? Joe noticed it too. The scent of fresh bloom lilacs ever so subtly laced with something muskier. The two men turned to look at the same time and were simultaneously struck dumbfounded. The woman that stood in the entryway of the bar was a vision. Large almond eyes the color of dark chocolate were set above lips as plump as ripened cherries. A careless tumble of jet black curls framed the incredibly pale skin of her face. Hair so thick it seemed to beg a man to run it through his fingers. She was dressed in a modest black dress that nevertheless served to accentuate her soft curves. the effect exponentially more arousing than any of the far more revealing outfits most of the other female patrons were decked out in. The roar of the room had descended to a quiet buzzing. Taking a moment to survey the crowd, the ghost of a smile reached the corners of her mouth before she made her way to the bar. The gentle sway of her hips holding the profound attention of every man in the room, as well as the unmasked disgust of many of the women. Sliding smoothly onto a stool 10 feet down the bar from Joe and Frank, the spell was abruptly broken and threads of conversation began to pick up again around them. Frank turned to Joe excitedly. "Joey, I'm gonna tap that shit." Joe sighed.
Frank, really? Every other guy in here just thought of the same thing, man. I mean, look at her. No way is she dumb enough to go anywhere with you. Let's just get out of here. That chick is trouble. I can feel it. There's just something about her that isn't right, you know? Something's off.
Yeah, there's something off. See that pale skin? Profound lack of vitamin D. Fortunately for her, I have the cure. Watch and learn.
Frank.
Look, if she shoots me down, we go home, okay? I won't even try to get another drink.
Fine, I'm holding you to that. I'll see you back here in 2 minutes. Then we're gone.
Frank flashed a tooth-bearing grin and laughed before sauntering towards the woman who already had 3 other men clustered around her. Joe leaned back against the bar, ready to observe the comedy that was surely about to unfold.
Here it comes. The part where she throws her head back and laughs her ass off. Maybe if he uses one of his extra special lines, those other guys there will do me a favor and lay him out. Then I'll just have to get a bouncer to help me cart the shithead to a cab.
He could see her watching Frank out of the corner of her eye as he approached, only turning to give him her full attention when he'd gotten close enough to throw her one of his patented pickup lines. He could see Frank say something then. To Joe's amazement, the woman's mouth curled into a wicked grin, her eyes burning with lust-filled desire as she hungrily stared at Frank. She raised a single finger to the lips of the man standing next to her, who had been obliviously trying to carry on a conversation before grabbing Frank by the hand and pulling him behind her towards the restrooms at the back of the bar. Frank had time to flash Joe an excited thumbs up across the room before the door slammed shut behind them. Joe's mouth dropped in shock.
Holy shit. Maybe I should see about getting another drink after all.
Instead, he simply sat at the bar, waiting for Frank to finish whatever the hell he was doing back there. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. After 20 minutes, Joe began to get worried. At 30, he got up and started to make his way back to the restroom. Frank would be pissed if Joe was interrupting, but damn it, they'd already missed curfew. He shoved through the bathroom door and stopped, unable to believe what he saw. Frank stood slumped against the back wall of the restroom, his arms held on either side by men built like professional linebackers and looking like he'd been beaten all to hell. The sultry woman standing in front of him was wielding a pair of pliers. As Joe watched, she reached into Frank's mouth with the tool and, accompanied by a sickening series of cracking pops, ripped one of his teeth out to join the small pile already on the tiled floor beside her. Frank moaned softly as bright red blood steadily pulsed out of his mouth and down his chin and chest. Joe stepped farther into the room.
Hey, what the fuck are you doing to him?
If he could get one of those guys off Frank, they might just stand a chance of getting the hell out of there. He briefly registered movement to his rear and realized another assailant must have been hidden behind the door. Before he could turn, he felt the sharp stab of a needle, then something like liquid fire injecting into his neck. Joe fell to the floor screaming and writhing in pain as the poison did its work before finally passing into blessed unconsciousness. Ice-cold water poured over his head and woke him up, sputtering. Joe coughed and blinked his eyes, a dull burning still echoing from his neck where he'd been injected earlier. His mouth was so dry it felt like sandpaper. He looked around. He was sitting tied to a chair in the middle of a nondescript warehouse, the pale light of dawn shining through the dirt-encrusted windows high above. To his right, he saw Frank was secured to another chair in a similar fashion, so battered and bruised that if Joe didn't know better, he would have thought the man was dead. The woman stood in front of him holding a bucket, flanked on either side by a pair of her black-clad goons. She'd changed out of her dress from the bar into the same military-style clothing the men wore. She smiled as Frank moaned through his mouthful of missing teeth, his head lolling in a circle.
So sorry to wake you, boys, but I want to make sure you are conscious for the big finish.
Fuck, lady, what the hell is happening? Who are you? What the fuck are you doing to us? Please, give me something to drink.
She gestured to one of the men standing beside her.
Maurice.
The man stepped forward and Joe saw he held a pint-sized bag of blood in his enormous hands. Fingers moving deftly for a man of his size, he inserted one end of a small plastic tube into the bag and held the other end over Joe's mouth. A few small drops bled from the tube onto Joe's tongue, salty and so rich he almost gagged. Then the man called Maurice was gone, administering the same to Frank before returning to the woman's side.
There. One last drink. In answering to your previous questions, my name is Morgana Fontaine. What is happening is I'm avenging the death of my darling sister and countless other victims of your horrific appetite.
She turned and walked to the sliding cargo door on the side of the warehouse.
And what I'm doing is ridding the world of 2 more God-forsaken parasites.
Facing east, the light of the morning sun streamed through the doorway directly onto the 2 prisoners strapped in the chairs. As the first rays touched them, the men's skin began to blacken and steam before spontaneously bursting into flames. Now fully alight, Joe and Frank's screams echoed throughout the empty warehouse, pockets of fat under their skin bubbling and popping, their eyes melting in their sockets. Morgana and her companion stood watching the conflagration, unblinking, until all that was left of the creatures were 2 small piles of dust and a pair of greasy, black stains. Approaching the remains, Morgana noisily hawked and spat a healthy wad of phlegm into the ash.
For my sister, let's get this cleaned up and get some breakfast, boys. I'm hungry.
With that, the hunter turned her back, heavy boots heel-clicking as she walked through the warehouse door into the welcoming light of day. All right. That was One Last Drink, Part 8 of the Wicker Saga, written by Shadow Swimmer 77. And I just wanted to take a minute and give a shout out to Terra Normal for taking on the role of Joey. And a huge shout out to 242 Reads. She's taken on the role of Morgana Fontaine. She will be in the next episode, which is A Figure in the Fog, which is the story that started the way down the Wicker Saga road. Because I've actually got a just a narrated version, no voice acting or anything, of A Figure in the Fog that I've already recorded and everything and uploaded. But after I did it and posted it to YouTube, someone commented and asked if there were more stories to the Wicker Saga. Or I guess, well, technically, where it starts out as Arthur's wake is dying. They were, their question was like, hey, are there more stories to Arthur's wake? So I'm looking it up, and I found Shadow Swimmer had done tons and tons of stories, and he's a fantastic author. So I was like, you know what? Let's make a run of it. So the next story will probably take a little while, hopefully not a year, because I've been gone for a while. Anyone that stuck around, thank you so much, by the way. But I am trying to work my way back. I'm also thinking about doing something on TikTok. Just a little 2-minute shorts, once or twice a week, maybe, just depending on how often I can do it. So if you do follow me on TikTok, keep an eye out for that. But yeah, the next one, Figure in the Fog, it's going to be a little bit. It is a long story, and so far, I've only got me and 242 Reads, who's taken on, Morgana's lines, which her name's Morgan in that story. It's a prequel to this one, and when she was a kid, she didn't like her full name. But anyway, I've got to reach out to a few more voice actors. I may pull Paranormal in on the next one too, and give him, maybe, who knows, maybe one of the main characters. Or I may let him take over the role of Frank, which I did on this one, and I take on one of the main characters. And there's a core 3 main characters in the next story, and that is Jamie, his little brother Lester, and then Morgana, or Morgan, as she's called in that one. And then you've got, Frank's in that one. Jamie, he's Jamie and Lester's dad. And then Jamie and Lester's mom, I can't remember her name. I don't even know if it actually gave her name. But then Morgan's mom is also in there, and seems like maybe 1 or 2 other characters. So, and it's going to take a little bit, but hopefully this will kind of hold you over until then. And I promise not to disappear for like 6-8 months again. I'm ready to get back to doing this. I guess because I've really missed it, and just every weekend I'm just like, man, I need to get back to doing it, but there's so much going on and all this stuff. But yeah, again, big shout out to Paranormal and 242 Reads, both for helping bring this story to life and bring this podcast back to life. I owe you guys everything, and unfortunately I have nothing. So but yeah, thank you everybody, and hope you enjoyed the story, and let's keep that fire burning low. Good night, everyone.